In this problem, our task is to find V0, and since we don't have a given voltage, we're just going to find it in terms of V1. Again, we'll use our problem solving strategy for op-amp circuits, and remember our assumptions. Those two currents are 0. The voltage across the input here, the voltage difference is 0. So let's substitute in our ideal op-amp model, and then let's apply nodal analysis. So here's our circuit redrawn with our ideal op-amp model inserted. Since the voltage here is 0, the voltage across this resistor is V1, and I'm going to define this node voltage as V2. So let's start and apply Kirchhoff's current law at that node, and if we do, we'll have, unless we're doing nodal analysis, V1 over R1 plus V1 minus V2 over R2 equal to 0. So those two currents leaving. So now if we collect terms, we'll have 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2 times V1 minus 1 over R2 times V2 equal to 0. Multiplying through by R2, we'll have R2 over R1 plus 1 times V1 minus V2 equal to 0. And then if we solve this for V2, we'll have V2 is 1 plus R2 over R1 times V1. Now, next we can apply Kirchhoff's current law at this node, and if we start, for instance, the current leaving that direction, again we're doing nodal analysis, V2 minus V1 over R2. The current here, V2 over R4. The current in this direction, V2 minus V0 over R3 equal to 0. Now let's start working on that equation. If we collect up terms, we'll have minus 1 over R2 times V1. Then we'll have 1 over R2 plus 1 over R3 plus 1 over R4 times V2 minus 1 over R3 times V0 equal to 0. Now let's multiply through by R3 and solve for V0. So now V0 becomes R3 over R2 plus R3 over R4 plus 1 times V2 minus R3 over R2 times V1. Now if you remember, we had previously solved for the relationship between V2 and V1, and if you remember, here it is. Now let's substitute that in. Okay, so substituting that in, we'll now have R3 over R2 plus R3 over R4 plus 1 times 1 plus R2 over R1 times V1 minus R3 over R2 times V1. And now rewriting, we'll have V0 is R3 over R2 plus R3 over R4 plus 1 times 1 plus R2 over R1 minus R3 over R2 times V1.